When someone talks about the fastest American cars of 1967, the answer is probably far more impressive than you imagine, because while Europe dominated the world of supercars, the United States was experiencing the greatest horsepower war in its history. The result was a generation of automobiles capable of humiliating many European sports cars in a straight line. Today we'll discover some of the most powerful, fastest, and most intimidating muscle cars and sports cars ever to come out of Detroit. 1967 Mercury Cougar GT. When it debuted in 1967, many people thought it was simply a more elegant version of the Mustang. But they were completely wrong, because beneath that sophisticated bodywork was a true muscle car, one capable of surprising even far more famous rivals. From the very first glance, the Cougar GT projected something different: the long hood. The aggressive hidden headlight grille and the elegant body lines gave it a much more refined presence than most American performance cars of the era. It wasn't the flashiest, but it was certainly one of the most elegant, and that was a big part of its personality. But here's where the story becomes truly interesting, because the GT version hit a massive 390 cubic inch FE58 under the hood, producing around 320 horsepower, enough to accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just over 6 seconds. It could also exceed 130 miles per hour, making it one of the fastest American automobiles of its generation. Today, the finest 1967 Mercury Cougar GT, 390 examples easily sell for more than $70,000, while the best-preserved cars continue to rise in value among collectors. And more than 50 years later, it remains one of the fastest, most elegant, and most underrated muscle cars America produced in 1967. 1967 Dodge Coronet R T. If, in 1967, you wanted to prove who was the fastest in a straight line, there was one car that was always part of the conversation: the Coronet, because Dodge didn't design this automobile with luxury in mind, not even elegance. It was built for one mission: to dominate the pavement, and it did exactly that. At first glance, it commanded respect. The muscular body, the aggressive front grille, and its low stance made it clear that this wasn't just another sedan, it was a true muscle car. But here's where the story becomes really interesting, because under the hood sat the massive 440 cubic inch Magnum V8, a 7.2-liter engine producing around 375 horsepower, an extraordinary figure for 1967, and enough to accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just over 6 seconds. It could also exceed 140 miles per hour, making it one of the fastest American automobiles anyone could buy that year. All it took was a touch of the accelerator to feel the car pulling with brutal force from low RPM. It didn't need high revs. Its power was available almost all the time. Dodge also offered different transmission and suspension configurations, allowing many buyers to prepare the car almost straight from the dealership for weekend competition. That philosophy helped make the Coronet one of the leading players in Detroit's horsepower war during 1967. Today, the finest 1967 Dodge Coronet RT 440 examples easily sell for more than $90,000, while the most original cars continue to increase in value among collectors. 1967 Buick GS400. While most people were talking about the Camaro, the GTO, or the Mustang, Buick was building one of the fastest and most surprising muscle cars of 1967, and perhaps that's why the GS400 remains one of the great forgotten legends of that era, because it had more than enough power to challenge almost anyone, and it did so with a level of refinement that was unusual among muscle cars. The long body, the imposing grille, and the subtle GS badges made it clear that this Buick was hiding something very special. It didn't need massive spoilers or flashy graphics. Its appearance was far more elegant, but under the hood, it was an absolute beast. Buick developed a massive 400 cubic inch V8 capable of producing around 340 horsepower. On paper, it may have seemed less powerful than some of its rivals, but reality was very different. Its top speed exceeded 135 miles per hour, numbers that placed it among the fastest muscle cars in America in 1967. But the GS had one advantage that very few competitors could offer: It was just as comfortable cruising for hundreds of miles as it was going flat out on an open highway. The interior was finished to a higher standard than many of its rivals. The suspension was more refined, and the driving experience was surprisingly smooth when you weren't asking for all the engine's power. It was the perfect balance between a luxury automobile and a true muscle car. Today, the finest 1967 Buick GS400 examples easily sell for more than $80,000, while the most original cars continue to increase in value among collectors. And now, I want to know something. Of the cars we've seen so far, which one would you choose? The elegant Mercury Cougar GT, the brutal Dodge Coronet RT, or this surprising Buick GS400? Let me know in the comments. 1967 Chevrolet Camaro SS. When Chevrolet introduced the Camaro in 1967, Ford had already spent years dominating the market with the Mustang, but Chevrolet had a very different plan. It didn't just want to compete. It wanted to build a car capable of beating anyone, and the SS 396 was proof of that. From the very first glance, the Camaro looked aggressive, the long hood, the compact body, and its muscular stance made it clear that it was born to go fast. It was smaller than many of its rivals, but that only made it even more dangerous, because it was hiding a true monster beneath the hood. And here's where the story becomes really interesting, because the most powerful version was equipped with the legendary 396 cubic inch big block, an engine capable of producing up to 375 horsepower, an incredible figure for 1967. Thanks to that power, the Camaro SS 396 could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in approximately 5.5 seconds and exceed 140 miles per hour, making it one of the fastest American automobiles of the entire year. It was quick off the line, fast through the corners, and incredibly fun to drive. It didn't take long to become one of the biggest stars on American streets and drag strips. Today, the finest 1967 Chevrolet Camaro SS 396 examples easily sell for more than $100,000, while the rarest versions command considerably higher prices among collectors. 1967 Plymouth GTX. If there was one automobile that shook the entire American industry in 1967, it was this one. Because when someone saw the Hemi badge on a Plymouth, they knew they were looking at one of the fastest cars money could buy. And that was no exaggeration. From the very first glance, the GTX demanded respect. The muscular body, the elegant grille, and the subtle badges concealed the car's true star, an engine that would become a genuine legend. But here's where the story becomes truly remarkable, because under the hood sat the famous 426 cubic inch Hemi 5.8. Officially, it produced 425 horsepower, but many experts agreed that the real number was considerably higher. In fact, Chrysler was known for underrating the actual output of its engines. With that incredible power plant, the GTX could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just over 5 seconds, and reach a top speed of nearly 146 miles per hour. Extraordinary figures for a production car in 1967. And enough to make it one of the fastest muscle cars of the entire decade. Today, the finest 1967 Plymouth GTX 426 Hemi examples easily sell for more than $180,000, while the rarest cars bring significantly higher prices at major auctions. And more than half a century later, it remains one of the fastest, most feared, and most legendary American automobiles ever to come out of Detroit during 1967. 1967 Pontiac GTO Ram Air. If there is one automobile that deserves to be called the father of the muscle car, it's the GTO. But in 1967, Pontiac decided to make it even faster. And that's how one of the most impressive versions in its history was born. The Ram Air. From the very first glance, it projected exactly what it promised. Power, aggression, and absolute confidence. The muscular body, the long hood, and the subtle hood scoops made it clear that this wasn't just any GTO. It was the evolution of a true icon. But here's where the story becomes really interesting. Because the Ram Air system wasn't just a marketing gimmick. Its purpose was to feed the engine with cooler, denser air, improving performance when the car was pushed to its limits. And combined with the legendary 400 cubic inch V8, the result was spectacular. Officially, it produced 360 horsepower. But as was the case with many muscle cars of the era, the real output was probably considerably higher. Thanks to that, the GTO Ram Air could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in approximately 5.7 seconds, and reach a top speed of over 140 miles per hour, making it one of the fastest American automobiles of 1967. Today, the finest 1967 Pontiac GTO Ram Air examples easily sell for more than $150,000, while the rarest versions command even higher prices among collectors. And now, I want to know something. Of all the cars we've seen so far, which one do you think would win a drag race? The Plymouth GTX 426 Hemi, the Camaro SS 396, the Dodge Coronet RT 440, or this legendary Pontiac GTO Ram Air? Let me know in the comments. 1967 Shelby GT500. In 1967, there were plenty of fast muscle cars, but very few commanded as much respect as a Shelby. Because when Carroll Shelby put his name on an automobile, everyone knew it would be something special. And the GT500 was the ultimate proof. From the very first glance, it made it clear that it wasn't just another Mustang. The massive hood, the functional air scoops, the auxiliary driving lights, and the signature racing stripes gave it a far more aggressive presence than the standard model. It looked like a car built to compete, and in many ways, it was. But here's where the story becomes truly fascinating. Because under the hood sat the massive 428 cubic inch Police Interceptor V8. Officially, it produced 355 horsepower. With that engine, it could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 6 seconds, and exceed 140 miles per hour, figures that placed it among the fastest American automobiles of 1967. But the GT500 wasn't famous solely for its power. It also offered far more refined handling than many of its rivals. The suspension had been revised by Shelby. The steering delivered greater precision, and the car inspired much more confidence as speeds climbed. It was a true American grand touring car, capable of covering long distances in comfort, and at the same time, taking on the most powerful muscle cars of the era. Perhaps that's why the GT500 became one of the most sought-after Shelbys of all time. Today, the finest 1967 Shelby GT500 examples easily sell for more than $250,000, while the rarest cars command significantly higher prices at major auctions. 1967 Dodge Dart GTS. At first glance, it looked like just another compact coupe, and that was exactly the problem for anyone who decided to challenge it, because very few people imagined what was hiding under the hood, and by the time they found out, it was already too late. The Dart was one of the greatest sleepers of the muscle car era, an automobile that combined a relatively small body with a massive engine, a recipe as simple as it was terrifying. But here's where the story becomes really interesting, because Dodge decided to install a massive 383 cubic inch V8 under the hood, an engine capable of producing around 300 horsepower. On paper, the number seemed lower than some of its rivals, but reality was very different. Thanks to its lighter weight, the Dart GTS offered an outstanding power-to-weight ratio. The result was a car capable of accelerating from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just over 6 seconds, and exceeding 130 miles per hour, making it one of the fastest and most surprising American automobiles of 1967. It also proved that you didn't need a huge car to compete with Detroit's biggest names. All you needed was the right engine. Today, the finest 1967 Dodge Dart GTS 383 examples easily sell for more than $90,000, while the best preserved cars continue to rise in value among collectors. 1967 Chevrolet Corvette L88. If there was one automobile that demonstrated just how far American engineering could go in 1967, it was this. Because the Corvette wasn't built to cruise quietly through city streets. It was built to win races, and by coincidence, it was also street legal. From the very first glance, it commanded respect, the fiberglass body. And its low, aggressive stance made it clear that this wasn't just another Corvette. It was the most extreme version ever created up to that point. But here's where the story becomes truly remarkable, because under the hood was the legendary 427 cubic inch big block V8. Chevrolet officially rated it at 430 horsepower. But that number was simply a strategy. Most experts agree that the L88 actually produced well over 550 horsepower in race-ready trim, an absolutely outrageous figure for 1967. With that incredible engine, the Corvette L88 could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 4.8 seconds, and exceed 170 miles per hour, a speed that made it not only the fastest American automobile of 1967, but also one of the fastest production cars on the planet. But perhaps the most incredible part is that Chevrolet never intended to sell thousands of them, quite the opposite. The L88 was so extreme that Chevrolet itself discouraged customers from buying it for everyday driving. Its high-compression engine required racing fuel, the idle was rough, it was demanding to drive, and virtually everything about it was designed for the racetrack. That's why only 20 units were built during 1967, a number that perfectly explains why it is now one of the rarest and most valuable Corvettes ever built. Today, the finest 1967 Chevrolet Corvette L88 427 examples easily sell for more than $4 million at major international auctions. And after seeing all of these monsters, it's clear that 1967 was one of the greatest years in American muscle car history, because manufacturers were no longer competing to build bigger cars. They were competing to build the fastest one. But now, I want to know your opinion. Of all the cars we saw today, which one do you think was the fastest American automobile of 1967? The Corvette L88, the Shelby GT500, the Plymouth GTX 426 Hemi, or would you choose another one? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this journey through the fastest American automobiles of 1967, don't miss the video now appearing on your screen, because there, we'll discover the fastest American automobiles of 1966. And believe me, more than one of those beasts helped pave the way for the legends we've just seen today. See you in the next video.